Derby Wars, racing's biggest contest site, is now even bigger with more than 200 games every day. Check out Survivor, Derby Wars' hottest new game. It's fun, easy to play, and for just $4 you could win $1,000. Just pick a horse to finish first, second, or third and advance to the next race. With daily payouts and games starting every hour, you'll see why fans are racing to play Survivor.
Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm okay, Brian. It's time for the back-to-school edition of HorseCenter, which means it's time for us to talk about the Breeders' Cup.
Back to school, but kiddies at home, you can watch after school. You don't want to miss this episode of HorseCenter because we're talking Breeders' Cup. This is going to be our first early preview of the Breeders' Cup. Matt, I hope you're ready for this.
Let's do it.
Let's do it indeed. We're going to talk 6 of the biggest races, or at least 6 of the fields that we feel are closest to firm at this point. Matt, we're still 8 weeks out or so obviously a lot can change. But a lot of these top 5s, we're going to do our top 5 in each of these 6 Breeders' Cup races this year at Santa Anita. And a lot of our top 5s aren't going to change too much because we know who the big horses are, right, Matt?
We do. Some of the races, it's easier than the others.
There you go. Let's start with the Classic, Matt. Start with the Classic. And I think we can only start with one horse, and that is
California Chrome.
California Chrome. You're right, Matt. You're right. California Chrome. He's the horse to beat. He's got great experience at 10 furlongs. He's undefeated this year. He's got great experience at Santa Anita. He's got the biggest fan base in the world. California Chrome is the horse to beat. Matt, is he going to be number 1 on both of our lists for the Breeders' Cup Classic at this point?
Well, I tell you what, Brian Zipsy, you can count me in the California Chrome fan list. I think that he is head over heels on top in that race for the Classic.
Matt, if you have Chromie underwear at home, I don't ever want to see it. California Chrome is number 1, folks. Now, number two is interesting. I think this is a decision that a lot of people might have different than us, but I noticed that both of us put the East Coast handicap star Frosted in the number 2 spot. Matt, he's coming off a loss. We were there to see the Woodward. He's coming off a loss. In fact, he ran 3rd in the Woodward. A lot of people said, well, that's proof that California Chrome is better than Frosted. What do you think?
Well, Brian, I think, you do a terrific job fending off the frosted flakes. There are many people out there that just love to doubt Frosted, and you're undaunted by all that, Brian, and I respect it. It's okay for a horse to lose, and I know you've talked about it before, and in today's world, it's not so okay to lose, but Frosted had a tough trip. Nothing went his way in the race. I know people will say he still should have won. Okay, fine, but right now, I don't think there's any question in my mind that he's the top contender in the Classic to California Chrome.
I would agree with that, Matt. I think 10 furlongs at Santa Anita, I would hope that he gets a little bit more of an aggressive ride, or a ride that gets him in the race early. I think that gets him in trouble. The Woodward, no excuses. There was a long list of reasons why Frosted might have been beaten that day, but no excuses. Shaman Ghost ran a very good race and deserved the win. I do agree that Frosted is without a doubt one of the 2 best older dirt horses, I guess, in the world. Horses lose. Frosted's running 15 straight Grade 1 or Grade 2 races. He's won 5 of them. That's not bad. He's run 2nd and 3rd and a bunch of others. I don't think the Woodward was his absolute best race, but as what we're talking about now is the Breeders' Cup Classic. And as a prep to the Classic, I think that that wide trip, slow pace, slightly slow break, giving weight, all those things make me think it was a good prep for the Classic. Number 3 on our list, though, Matt, number 3 on our list is the real wild card. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about a record-setting Travers winner. Before I go into Arrogate, Matt, let me point out that California Chrome, who both of us have number one on our list without a doubt right now. California Chrome has never run the speed figure, the Beyer speed figure, or a few other speed figures that either Frosted ran in the mile or Arrogate did at 10 furlongs. At 10 furlongs, Matt, in the Travers at Saratoga. How big a threat is Arrogate? He's only had one stakes race in his life, but it was pretty good.
Well, Brian, my response to that is really short and sweet. I don't particularly love any of the 3-year-olds going into the Classic, and Arrogate is one of them. And like you said, his lack of experience makes him really up against it in the Classic. And your comment about those big Beyer speed figures, those big figures are situational. It depends on how the race plays out. He had no competition in that race in the Travers. He was loose, alone, and that's the kind of situation sometimes where a horse will pop out a really, really big Beyer speed figure, and that's what I think happened. He's going to have a heck of a time trying to beat California Chrome, and I don't care that Chrome hasn't run one of those kinds of figures. I want California Chrome in the Classic.
I can't disagree with you there, Matt. The Beyer speed figures are interesting to look at, interesting to talk about. But when the real running comes, we'll see who's best. Maybe I'm a little bit more afraid of Arrogate than you, because I think a similar performance to the Travers makes him an interesting proposition in the Breeders' Cup Classic. No doubt, to me, if we're talking about who's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, Arrogate is the third most dangerous horse after California Chrome and Frosted. We both had Nyquist number 4, Matt, and Nyquist, I think, needs to kind of reawaken. He needs a rebirth, if you will. But all those good races he's run, including the Kentucky Derby, I think if O'Neill gets him back going in the right direction, a fast track obviously probably helps. I am worried that he is another horse that likes to be on or near the lead, like so many of these are, but I think he would be the 4th most likely winner. Then number 5, I had Opportunity, and what I meant by Opportunity is I don't think Opportunity is going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic by any means, but being that the race is in California and being that there should be plenty of pace in there, I think Opportunity is a horse likely to get up for 3rd or 4th or something. So Opportunity was the 5th. Who was your 5th, Matt?
Yeah, and Brian, I can't include Opportunity on my list, and I agree with everything you said, but I give that horse little or no chance to win the Classic. So I went, I put in Exaggerator, who has won at Santa Anita and is known to unleash a big run. At least I think he might have a chance somehow to win the Classic.
Interesting, Matt. And I could see your reasoning there. If Exaggerator does run his very best, maybe he is the 4th or the 5th most likely to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. So fair enough. Interesting, though, that you kind of downplayed the chances of the 3-year-olds, and then you had 3-year-olds in 3, 4, 5. Does that kind of speak to a drop-off in the older horses after California Chrome and then after Frosted?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. It's not because like I said, I don't really like a 3-year-old to win, but when we go beyond California Chrome and Frosted, what older horse am I going to put in there? So
yeah. I agree with that too, Matt. I think FNX is a nice horse. I think Move the Cage and Shaman Ghost, but especially going out to California, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, no question. I don't like FNX going out to California. Nyquist, Arrogate, Exaggerator. They've got a home field edge there. So, but we'll see as the next couple months go by. We're going to revisit this, and the fields will firm up. Lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about, Matt. One horse I wanted to mention, too, that neither of us had in our top 5, Melatonin. If he gets healthy, I think he's a horse that deserves to be on this list. We're not sure if he's going to be at his best then. Also, he's another speed type, which makes me like him a little bit less. But Melatonin is a horse worth mentioning. Matt, let's go right into the co-feature of the weekend, and that's the Breeders' Cup Distaff. We're guessing that Beholder and Songbird and Stellar Wind are all pointing for the Distaff right now. It's not a done deal with Beholder. It's not a done deal with Songbird. But if we get who we're hoping goes in the Distaff, this becomes a very big race.
Terrific field. Maybe the most interesting race of the weekend, considering we've got Songbird with her unbeaten 10 race career, the multiple champion Beholder, and then there's Stellar Wind, who I put at number one because Stellar Wind beat Beholder, and I get it. Beholder ran a big race in the Pacific Classic, but Stellar Wind beat her fair and square. Stellar Wind is a horse that's getting better. I'm not sure if Beholder is a horse that's getting better. I'm going with Stellar Wind at this point.
Stellar Wind may very well be my bet, especially if she's lingering as a clear third choice, closer to 4-1, below the top two fan favorites, Beholder and Songbird. I do have her at number 3 right now, Matt, but she's very, very close to number 1 for me. It's hard to separate the top 3. Interestingly, neither of us have the undefeated 3-year-old filly, Songbird, 10 for 10. Just a dominant horse in all these races so far. She's never raced outside of her gender nor her age group. And the fact that Beholder has the speed to kind of take it to her pretty early makes me think she's a little bit vulnerable. But I was a little surprised that neither of us had her at number 1.
Well, there are just those question marks that remain, Brian. She's got to go against these older, tough horses, and she hasn't done that yet. Going back to the Beyer speed figures, Brian, she hasn't run a big Beyer speed and figure, and I get it. She's won so easily in all of her races. She's never needed to do that. Do I think Songbird could win the Distaff? Absolutely. But I right now can't put her above Stellar Wind and Beholder.
Yeah, it sounds like our top 3 are pretty secure, Matt, and that might surprise people, especially on the East Coast, because Cavorting really has been on a roll. Cavorting did it at Belmont, she did it at Saratoga, 3 big stakes wins in a row for the Kieran McLaughlin trained filly. Now, in her last race, the Personal Ensign, that was her first time around 2 turns, and she looked good coming from off the pace. California Breeders' Cup Distaff against these top 3, I don't love her chances.
I can't argue with that, Brian. She's in terrific form right now, and her last race was great, and the one before that was terrific. But heading to California on the Santa Anita track, home field advantage again to the 3 that we've mentioned. Tough task to beat all 3 of those.
Agreed. So we both have her in 4. Matt, I threw in a little bit of a dark horse at number 5. That's Valdori. She's a South American import. She ran very well at Dubai earlier this year against horses like Lani in the UAE Derby, the UAE Philly race there, the Oaks. So I think Valdori, she's had a couple races in America. She could be a horse popping up big, and that's from the Bob Baffert barn. All right, Matt, that was the Distaff. How about we go to the turf? And I think our discussion needs to begin with the top 2 on everybody's list right now, and that's the best distance horse in Europe, postponed, the best distance turf horse in America, and that is Flintshire.
Yep, Brian. And at this point, it's always hard with the Euros to have a confident feeling about which of those horses are actually going to come over. Sometimes there's a lot of last-minute decisions with the Euros, but in my mind, Flintshire is just so good right now, and so good on the American style turf courses, on the hard turf courses. I don't care which Euros come over, postponed, whoever they might be. They're going to have one heck of a tough time beating Flintshire, and I don't care whether that it's in California. That's just going to make it even harder for the Euros, where that track may even be harder than the courses that Flintshire has been dominating on the East Coast.
Yeah, Flintshire seems to like firm turf. Now, interestingly, Matt, I agree with everything you said, by the way. Flintshire, for me, is a clear number 1, even though postponed is a top-notch turf horse. Flintshire it was the horse that the American beat a couple years ago out in California. That was, of course, Main Sequence beating Flintshire a couple years ago. And it seems like that happens a lot. The Euros are very highly respected. Often they win, but not so much when we have a real top turf horse in America. I think the advantage comes back to us. I'm thinking of way back to Manila beating Dancing Brave, thinking about Theatrical beating Trempolino, and I'm thinking about Main Sequence beating Flintshire. Now this time, Flintshire is the Main Sequence. He's a proven American turf horse now, and he'll be the one defending his home turf, and I like his chances quite a bit. I did put Postpone number 2. I went back to an American, and I see, Matt, you have the same as me. Money Multiplier, I think, is improving rapidly of late, and if you go back to that Sword Dancer, he ran a really sneaky good race because he did have traffic problems. He had to check, he had to steady, he had to move around horses. He ran a very good race in the Sword Dancer, and you can see his progression.
Yeah, he certainly did. And you know what the Euros face, it's not just the firmer turf than they're used to. It's the whole pace scenario and the way the American races are run on the turf. Our turf races are run with so much more speed coming out of the gate, and that's often difficult for the Euros to transition to. And the quality of our turf racing has just gotten a lot better.
Again, Matt, I'm agreeing with you. I don't know what's going on this week, but I'm agreeing with you a whole lot. However, having said that, I do have Europeans filling the 4th and 5th spots just on sheer talent alone. I think they dwarf the rest of the North American distanced horses. 7th Heaven has just gotten so good. The 3-year-old filly from Aidan O'Brien's barn, and another Aidan O'Brien, Highland Reel, who's proven that he can run well everywhere. Highland Reel is running in Europe soon. Last race for 7th Heaven in the Yorkshire Oaks, she just dominated Found, who won the Breeders' Cup Turf last year. So still we respect those Europeans, but we both have Flintshire and Money Multiplier high on our lists in the turf.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, with the Americans right now, it's Flintshire, and then a lot of horses who have run second to Flintshire. I don't see a big threat on the West Coast to come in the Breeders' Cup Turf.
Yeah, and I'll add to that point, Money Multiplier for me is a clear number 2 in America just because of his continued improvement and how good a race he ran last time in the Sword Dancer. He's a younger horse too who figures to be improving. Let's stick with the turf theme, and we'll go right to the mile. Matt, last year, Tepin dominated at Keeneland. This may present a different proposition running at Santa Anita for Tepin, but we can't look past anybody but Tepin. She's done it everywhere, and she's our best miler, and we both have her number 1.
Yep, and she goes in a couple weekends in the Woodbine Mile, so it's going to be interesting to see if she's back up to full speed. Mark Cassie, the trainer, seems to think so, that she's now back training as well as she ever has. And again, that what you mentioned is a concern for me, that it's out west on the West Coast grass, but Tepin's won wherever she's gone. Yeah,
Tepin is simply amazing, and she continues to win. She hasn't lost in over a year now. Can't have anybody but her number 1. Last year's Breeders' Cup Mile was a very interesting race, and first that she won so impressively, but then there was a shot down the stretch. Mondalisti was, 6th or 7th at the 8th pole, really did finish like a shot, and he's backed up that form he ran in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. Of course, he won the Woodbine Mile last year as well, with a big win in the Arlington Million. Obviously, he's a classy horse. He's going to jump back in distance to go to the mile, but I see you have him number 2. I have a couple other horses ahead, but he's a danger.
He's one Euro that loves to run in North America. He comes over here and runs his best race. So serious threat for Tepin.
I added a couple horses, Matt. They're in the ballpark with Mondalista for me at least, but I think they're very talented horses, older horses. They've both had some issues, but on their very best, I think they are horses that could even win the Breeders' Cup Mile. I'm talking about Ironicus from the Shug McGahee barn, and I'm talking about Ring Weekend, an old favorite of mine who came back and set a course record in the Bernard Baruch. Both of them on their best, watch out.
Yeah, it was great to see Ring Weekend get to the winner's circle in that race. And I threw in Midnight Storm, who has had a terrific year in Southern California, running the mile. So home field advantage there, maybe a little bit of an outside threat.
Yeah, he's the Californian, and he's hot. I just haven't been overly impressed with any of his races. French 3-year-old, there's been a lot of good 3-year-old milers in Europe, but Zelzal might be the progressive one. The French son of See the Stars has been looking really good of late since he flopped early in the year. And Zelzal, the word is he might be coming over. So we both have him 5 on our mile list, Matt. Why don't we switch gears and go back to the dirt? Let's do it with how about the sprinters, Matt? Interestingly, I was surprised how our turf lists were similar. I was surprised how similar our sprints, because I think you could have an argument for AP Indy, and certainly the best on the East Coast. Masochistic, when he's healthy and running well, who knows how good he is. Didn't do much in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year, but I'm going to draw a line through that one. Trey Fong obviously is a major talent, but we both have Lord Nelson number 1.
I think, I think, Brian, that Lord Nelson and AP Indian are the two standouts right now. Lord Nelson, 3 for 3, 2 grade 1s, blowing those fields away. Home field advantage in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. AP Indian, 5 wins in a row, is just phenomenal right now. For me, clearly the best sprinter on the East Coast. It's hard for us not to have those two on top and given the edge to Lord Nelson because the races at Santa Anita. Trey Fong came out and ran a super big race, and Masochistic is doing well. I don't know. It's hard to switch that order up.
Okay, fair enough. I think there are a lot of people out there who believe in Masochistic and a lot of people out there who believe in Trey Fong. So for me, it's not quite as clear cut. I have been on Lord Nelson's bandwagon all year, a talented lightly raced sprinter from Bob Baffert. We've seen that many times before and how well they end up doing in the Breeders' Cup Sprint generally. And he seems to be getting better with every start. So that's why I have him number 1. AP Indian, yeah, if this was in Belmont, probably I would have AP Indian number 1, but it is a question mark going out to California. Awfully good horse, though. And, after the top 4, I think there is a drop-off. I threw Kobe's back number 5 just in case this race just completely collapses with a 43 half mile, and Kobe's back is the horse that might be most likely to wrangle them all in the stretch. Matt, let's jump right to the dirt mile. Who is your number 1 in the dirt mile?
My number 1 is American Freedom. I like his running style for the mile. Again, home field advantage. I don't know. I'm kind of making it sound like Mr. Baffert could possibly have a really big Breeders' Cup this year.
What a surprise. American Freedom, I don't like nearly as much as you. I respect him. He keeps running good races. He is better than I thought he was a couple months ago. I don't know. He got his papers were handed to him pretty good in the Travers. Now, having said that, he was second in a large, talented field in the Travers, so that's a good performance. But on the other hand, he was 13 and a half behind the winner. Of course, we're dropping back to a mile, so it's a different kind of race.
Yeah.
But I don't love to have a horse who was beaten so badly as my top pick in the Breeders' Cup. Him and Gunrunner, though, I do respect. For me, though, it was pretty easy to put the 4-year-olds ahead of them. Dortmund, I'm guessing Dortmund is more likely here, but he could certainly show up in the Classic, in which he would be a top 5 horse for me. Dortmund is a big threat to win this, but I think the talent of Run Happy just overtakes everything in here. Now, I know he hasn't raced in a long time. He hasn't raced since the day after Christmas, but I think he's that good. He's that talented. His connections are not only very confident that a mile is going to be fine for him, but he's absolutely working fabulously. I'm going to see him at Churchill Downs working soon. He's going to race at Churchill Downs in a few weeks. I think Run Happy is the real deal, and I think he won't miss a beat going from 6 furlongs to a mile.
Brian, there's a lot in your argument that I have to agree with, but again, He hasn't run yet, so I have a little bit farther down my list. So until he gets on the track and we see what he can do, and I'm sure he's probably going to do good things, I just have him a little farther down the list.
Okay, fair enough. I go Run Happy and Dortmund, the older horses. Matt's a little bit liking the 3-year-olds better. I threw an economic model because of his really nice finish in the 7 furlongs King's Bishop as a possibility, but there are a lot of dirt mile possibilities out there. Folks, I hope you enjoyed our first Breeders' Cup preview. We're going to do a few more of these. We did the Classic, we did the Distaff, we did the Turf, we did the Mile, we did the Sprint and the Dirt Mile. Matt and I agreed on a lot. We disagreed on a little bit, which is good. I like when we disagree a little bit, Matt.
No question. It makes it fun, Brian Zipsy.
Thanks as always, folks, for watching. We appreciate you. Thank you also. We've got more and more folks coming up to us at the racetrack and saying hello and that they enjoy the show. We love to meet you out there. Thank you also to the best tournament site out there, Derby Wars, our sponsor. Any parting shots for us, Matt?
And again, thank you, Brett Workman, for producing HorseCenter.
Brett Workman is doing an excellent job, our new producer. Thank you, folks. We'll see you next